Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Excuse me. My name is Dinah Kador, and I'm Dillard University sophomore class chaplain, and I will be doing the grace for this evening. If you all please prepare your hearts for prayer and continue to pray in your tradition as I pray in mine. Let us prepare for a moment of prayer. Father God, we thank you for today. We thank you for the blessings of yesterday, the blessings of today and tomorrow, God. We thank you for your grace and your mercy that continues to cover us, God. We thank you for your love and your wisdom. God, we pray that your love and your wisdom fills us, and that we know, God, that your way is perfect, God, that your plans are perfect. Let us not get ahead of ourselves, God. Let us always fill our hearts with service, with love, and with kindness, God. God, I pray that your love exceeds us, God, and I pray that your spirit moves boldly in our lives. Bless tonight, God, and bless tomorrow. These are the things that I ask in your name. Amen.
Amen.
You gotta walk. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Alana Taylor, and I'm a first-year student majoring in pre-nursing from Tempe, Arizona. Welcome to Brain Food, Dillard University's President's Lecture Series. Dillard has a long history of being the cultural and intellectual hub of the Gentilly community. We are striving to be the place where all of New Orleans comes together for discussions of critical issues. Thank you for being with us here tonight. At this time, please take a moment to ensure that any electronic devices, including cell phones, are either silenced or off. After the lecture, and if time permits, you'll have an opportunity to engage with the speaker and ask questions. We know that there is excitement after the speech, and many people will want to participate. We have a simple request. Ask questions, no speeches, no commentaries, no short stories, and questions can be asked in 30 seconds. If you cannot fit your question in 280 characters of a tweet, you know it is too long. In fact, we have provided you with cards to write out your questions. We will collect them during the Q&A, and if we need to use them instead of having people ask questions. Our series sponsors are the Hyatt Regency New Orleans, Follett College Bookstores, and Sidex. Our lecturer supporters is the Sophomore Class Council. We would like to thank them for this event. The program will proceed as printed. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Traylon Rogers, and I'm a first-year student majoring in urban studies and public policy from Dallas, Texas.
Yeah, you are.
Dillard was founded in 1930 through the merger of two schools founded in 1869. Straight College, founded by the American Missionary Association, which is now the United Church of Christ, and New Orleans University, founded by the Methodist Episcopal Church, which is now the United Methodist Church. And across cultural collaboration, these different denominations, along with citizens of the city, pooled resources from this new university, which opened its doors in September of 1935. Dillard University turns 150 years old next year, but we started to celebrate early. And why not? High rankings in Washington Monthly and U.S. News, we are the #2 producer of African Americans with physics degrees. Dillard boasts a nationally recognized film program. Our award-winning theater program is gearing up for a production, Romeo and Juliet, set in the civil rights era of New Orleans. We are known for our legendary nursing program and concert choir. We have the reigning GCAC men's and women basketball champions. We recently launched our Urban Water and Management Certificate Program. As a first-year program, I am a member of the nationally ranked mock trial team. Just recently, we placed second at the competition in Jackson, Mississippi. Last year, we did not rank at all. In addition, we loaned Dillard students to another team that was short of members and came in third place. We have the highest alumni giving rate of any Louisiana college or university. Our alumni include Chief Justice of the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, Carl Stewart, the first black cast member of Saturday Night Live, Garrett Morris, and the current president of Prairie View A&M, who was the first African American president of any Ivy League university, Dr. Ruth Simmons. Over the next 18 months, we invite you to learn about the Jewel of Gentilly, Dillard University, as we continue to celebrate our 150 years of education, advocacy, and service. Please welcome the 7th president of Dillard University, America's socially conscious hip-hop president who bets that Kanye likes how he thinks too, Dr. Walter M. Kimbrough.
Good evening. All right, one more time. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you. Let me begin with 2 quotes. The first quote: discrimination in the future will not be administered by poor whites and the people who believe in segregation, but by liberals who believe in a desegregated society. Blacks' battle for justice and equality will be against the subtlety of our liberal friends who will wine and dine with us in the swankiest hotels, work with us, and still discriminate against us when it comes to money and power. Second quote: the liberal is more deceitful than the conservative. The liberal is more hypocritical than the conservative. Both want power, but the white liberal is the one who has perfected the art of posing as black's friend and benefactor. And by winning the friendship, allegiance, and support of black folks, white liberals have the willing cooperation of civil rights leaders. These leaders sell out our people for just a few crumbs of token recognition and token gains. The first quote comes from Dr. Benjamin Elijah Mays, legendary president of Morehouse College from 1940 to 1967, and it comes from his final address in 1967. Of course, he was the mentor of Dr. Martin Luther King. The second quote comes from Malcolm X in a speech given in 1963. Either of these quotes could have possibly been from our guest tonight, but if she said them, we'd probably go Beyonce and Jay-Z. Figure out what that means. My point is, black people have always been complex and have held a variety of views. Both of these men are tremendous influences for me and should help explain why I bring conservatives to speak at an HBCU. Our guest at Dillard is not the first. Jason Riley and Rich Lowry were here, but they are not household names. Riley in particular is interesting because he wrote a widely read editorial suggesting that there was no need for HBCUs today, as evidenced by fewer black kids choosing them as the best academic choice. The numbers support that aspect of his argument. In 1954, over 90% of blacks attended HBCUs. Today, it's about 8%. And part of that argument has been that HBCUs do not reflect the real world, that students don't learn how to interact with people of different races and ideas. This is an argument that many black folks use too. So presumably, being on a campus where you have ideas like those being shared tonight is what people think black students need. I agree. But then, so-called woke black folks say, how could you have a conservative speak at an HBCU? They say students at HBCU should not be exposed to ideas that they don't agree with, assuming that all black students at HBCUs think alike. And that's the problem. Some say HBCUs don't represent the real world, so don't go to school there. And then when you bring the real world to an HBCU, people say it's a bad thing, and then they threaten not to support you. So now in my 14th year as a college president, one of the longest serving HBCU presidents in the nation, I am fully committed to an intellectually robust experience for my students. You can't teach critical thinking if everything you are exposed to is in your comfort zone. And growth is needed by us all, which brings me to our speaker tonight, whose Twitter feed is the polar opposite of mine. And yet, I find her to be intriguing. Most of us had no clue who Candace Owens was until April 21st, when your boy Kanye tweeted out that he likes the way that she thinks. In May, the New York Times wrote, Candace Owens, the communications director for Turning Point USA, is a sharp, young black conservative, a telegenic speaker with killer instincts who makes videos with titles like How to Escape the Democratic Plantation and The Left Thinks Black People Are Stupid. Her social media platform has exploded, now with over 800,000 followers on Twitter. She's an enthusiastic defender of the president. She said Barack Obama is a cause for bad race relations. She's been a critic of the Me Too movement. She supported the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh. Yeah, she's black girl magic in a MAGA hat, and so for most black folks, they're trying to figure out that's witchcraft. But despite the social media dragging, ironically something she experienced as a high school student by racists who led her to become an activist against bullying, she stays strong in her beliefs, and whether you agree or not, in an area where people are quick to say or do anything to avoid conflict, she takes it head on. And at the very least, you have to give credit to anyone willing to express their convictions, even to a group like this that probably disagrees with you. That's something we can all learn from. So after we play this short video, the next voice you will hear is our brain food guest chef, Candace Owens.
Mom, Dad, I'm a lesbian. I like girls. Oh, sweetheart. We always knew. The bottom line, we just want our children to be happy, and we love you regardless. Brave soul. Oh, thank you guys. Oh, also, I think I might be a conservative. I don't understand. I can't breathe. Hey, get that camera out of my wife's face. Guys, it's totally fine. It's okay. I just, think a little more conservatively. Sweetheart, you're black. Yeah. Look, it was a crazy election cycle, a lot of emotions. We're going to get you somebody to talk to, and you're going to work through this entire mess. No, Dad, this is who I am. What about Beyonce? Yeah, what about Beyonce? You like Beyonce, you love Beyonce. Beyonce is a liberal. What's going on? I still do. It's just as a general rule, I don't think the Billboard 100 should dictate my political alignments. And what about all of our Spanish-speaking friends? I knew there were too many Caucasian people in this neighborhood. Oh, that's good, honey. Mm-hmm. Make me the bad guy, Mrs. I can't live without those hedges. Well, we're gonna need those hedges when the neighbors find out that our daughter is in the KKK. What? Guys, this is getting completely out of hand. Mom, I'm still black, and I still like Hispanic people. I simply think that we should maybe put the economical future of this country ahead of the social issues. That is all. Sweetie, can you please just be gay? Because that's where this journey really began for me. I was just sitting in my apartment watching the news with my younger cousin, and I just had this idea that for some reason, being a conservative, coming out as a conservative, as a black woman is more difficult than it is, or than it was, to come out as a gay person in the 80s. So I said, oh, I haven't today, I'm gonna do a little satirical stab and come out as conservative and put it on the internet, and that'll be that. Really with no plan in mind. There was no direction that I was going into. One of the questions I like to ask myself today all the time is, are black people free? Are black people free in America?
No.
I certainly don't think so, because if black people were free, I could upload that video and that would be it. No, this video was met with some vicious attacks. I was instantly in the comments, it went baby viral. I mean, for my first video, it did pretty well, maybe 300,000 views. And in the comments, it was, here comes another Uncle Tom, here comes a coon, here comes a race traitor. Nasty comments, a bed wench. At the time, I didn't even know what that was, to be honest with you. And I thought to myself, how strange. I didn't put on a MAGA hat in this video. I didn't say that I support Trump in this video. I simply said I was a conservative. And I got a really nasty reaction. Of course, if you guys follow me today, if you've Googled anything about me, you've probably read some pretty horrific things. I think I've read that I am anti-black, that I'm anti-LGBTQ. I've read that I'm a Nazi sympathizer. I've definitely read a few times that I'm literally Hitler, which is something that the left likes to say a lot about anybody that expresses conservative views. So it's been an interesting journey to just a year ago put up a video and to now be just smeared across all of the publications that I once read when I was a liberal, when I thought that I was a Democrat, or that I had to be a Democrat. These same people that I placed so much faith in, the second that I said I'm a conservative, turned their back on me and wanted to smear me. So what I'd like to do, and by the way, this is the very first HBCU that I've ever been invited to. I was just speaking with your president about that. Thank you for having me. But that's an interesting little tidbit, because one of the things that I always get is, well, why doesn't she go speak at black schools? Black schools don't invite me to come speak. I go speak wherever I'm invited. I want my ideas to get back. I believe in my ideas, and I'm not afraid to have my ideas met with a challenge. So of course, I want to go speak to in any climate whatsoever. I heard last week that you guys, or the last speaking guest that you guys had was one of the Me Too founders, and I'm adamantly opposed to the Me Too movement, and I speak out against that. But I can guarantee you, if I had come forward and I said that I wanted to debate that individual, it would have been declined. I have asked to debate pretty much every black leader that has different views from me. Almost all of them, really. Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, Angela Rye, who got back. T.I. sent her a text and said, Candace would like to debate you because Kanye put me in touch with T.I. And she said, oh no, I don't want to debate her. She was mean to my mentor, Maxine Waters. If you're up on CNN every night and you genuinely believe what you believe, if you're representing black people, wouldn't you want to stand on stage with somebody that disagrees with you and slaughter her? Wouldn't you, if you think that my ideas are so bad, it should be pretty simple to stand on the stage with Candace Owens and make me look like a Nazi sympathizer. But there's something else going on. There's something fraudulent going on. There's something else going on that makes them feel okay in an echo chamber, but not okay when conservatives challenge them. Another conservative, a friend of mine, Larry Elder. Larry Elder, throughout his entire career, has asked to debate Al Sharpton or Jesse Jackson. They have declined the entire time. Every single time he puts it out, they decline. The truth about me, of course, is of no interest in media. They don't want to touch it about me. When I read stories about me, I read my Wikipedia page, made the mistake of reading my Wikipedia page, and it was terrifying. I got finished, I was like, that girl sounds terrible. I wouldn't want her to speak at my school. The truth about me is of no interest to them whatsoever. They want you to believe that because I was raised in Connecticut that I came from a rich family. I didn't. I didn't come from a rich family whatsoever. It's exactly the opposite. They want you to believe that I grew up in a Republican household with tons of money. It couldn't be further from the truth. My story starts in Stamford, Connecticut. I grew up in a really small apartment. I have two sisters. We grew up in low-income housing where the exterminator would have to come once a week to get the roaches out of our apartment. My mom didn't have a job. Her very first job that she had, my mom didn't finish high school. She grew up in and out of group homes in her life, one of 9 brothers and sisters. The majority of her brothers and sisters served time in prison. When I was a little girl, I went to go see my uncles in prisons. And that seemed normal to me. I don't say that to be a victim. That was normal to me. I loved my uncles. I still love my uncles. That was just the lifestyle that I had. I grew up with a bunch of cousins, and this was the lifestyle that I had. People that were on food stamps, that were on welfare. This was a lifestyle that I had. But because I speak proper English today, because I complete sentences, now all of a sudden I'm white, apparently. That's it, I'm instantly white. And it's fascinating to me to get comments from black people that say, I talk white. What are you saying when you say to someone that because you speak English, you're white? You're saying black people are stupid. That's exactly what you're saying. That you think black people are stupid. If you think that me completing a sentence in good English means that I'm white, you think that black people are incapable of speaking good English. I learned to speak good English because one thing that my mother was adamant about was that all of her children, she had two things. The first was that she didn't want us to have what she called ghetto names. She wanted us to have very easy names. So I'm Candace, and my sisters have very easy names, Ashley. My other sister's Brittany. The second thing was that she wanted to make sure that we read a ton of books. So despite the fact that she didn't drive and that we didn't have any money, my mom used to march us 2 blocks every single day after school to the library. We had to pick a book, we had to read the book, and I really developed a love for books and a love for reading and a love for writing when I was a very small child. The first thing I ever wanted to be was a rapper. I used to sit in my room. What are you laughing about? I can still kind of rap. I used to sit in my room and I used to write rhymes and poetry. And my sisters, we were in a band, and my sister would sing and I would be the rapper. And that was the first thing because I loved lyrics so much and it felt to me like an escape. Reading a book, getting caught up in somebody else's world became an escape for me. So at the time I was 8 years old, I was reading novels that were way bigger than my head, constantly trying to read whatever my mom had on her bookshelf because she was a member of a book club and she'd get different books every month. That's the reason why I speak good English. I love books. It's really that simple. When I was young, I was a very, very, very complicated child. I mean, I was constantly getting spankings. It was just, I was the child. I had 3 sisters. We were all back to back in age. But if there was one of us that was always in trouble, it was me because I always pushed back against authority. And I wouldn't say it was just like, hey, Candace, do this, and I was a bad child and didn't want to do it. I always wanted to understand why I had to do it. I was always a critical thinker. This is the way that I came out of the womb. People say, how do you do what you do? Where did this come from? Where did this boldness come up to stand up and to challenge the narrative? And the truth is, I was genuinely born this way. The videos of me as a little girl, when I watch them now, my mom says, oh, you're going to get a daughter just like you. I really hope not. But I do think that there's something to be said for someone that's willing to push back and to ask their parents why. Critical thinking. Nobody critically thinks anymore. You just accept it. Whatever somebody tells you, you accept it. You're angry, you're upset. You don't even stop to ask yourself why you're angry or why you're upset. I constantly did when I was a child, and I constantly did when I entered school. I was always a student that was in trouble. I got great grades, but I was always a student that was in trouble because I would ask my teachers why. An example of that was, I have a teacher, Mr. White, who I'm very close with now, and he writes to me on Facebook and he says, if there was going to be one student that went on to do what you are doing, it was definitely going to be you. This is just the person you always were. And he talks to me about a test that we had on World War II, and one of the questions was, why did America have to drop the bomb in Hiroshima? Pretty simple question. All of the kids in class started answering it. And of course, my hand flew up because I instantly had an issue with the question. And Mr. White was like, oh, God, Candace, what's the problem? And I said, I don't like this question because the answer is already implied in it. Why did America have to drop the bomb on Hiroshima? Well, you're already telling me that America had to drop the bomb on Hiroshima. A better question would be, did America have to drop the bomb on Hiroshima? And I think that really sums up the kind of student that I was. I never wanted to feel like someone was putting something in my brain without me thinking it through. I carried the same attitude when I went to college. I chose journalism as a major, which is quite interesting now since most journalists hate me, because I think that they are the biggest part of the problem in America. They are the biggest sowers of division in America, are the journalists today. When I was in school, I was forced to take, for my Gen Ed requirements, Feminism 101. Does anybody take feminism courses here? Do you guys have, do you guys have feminism courses here? Good. Good. I hate feminism. So, don't worry, I'll get into it. Yeah, I know. Surprise. Yeah. So I was forced to take Feminism 101. It's interesting, I know. You're like, how can you say you hate? I hate feminism. I am not a feminist, proudly not a feminist, and I can explain to you why. So my freshman year, I was in this course, and I had no feeling about whether I was feminist or not. I didn't really care for it. I honestly didn't know why I had to take the class, least of all why I had to pay for it. when you're in college, you're the person that's paying for the classes. So to be forced to take something that has nothing to do with your major seems a little weird. Why are we suddenly taking classes like Feminism 101 and Gender Studies as opposed to taking hard academics? And I had this teacher, and she was, I guess, if you had to create a stereotype of what you imagine a feminist to be, she was exactly that. Really someone who hated men. It became very apparent to me at the point of the course was for me to walk away feeling that men were oppressive to women. Now, in my life, I had a very good relationship with my father. I was raised in a household by my grandfather, who eventually took us out of that low-income housing structure and raised us. And my grandfather was the closest person to me today. And he is a person that shaped all of my ideas, even though he thought he was a Democrat, I guess, coming from the civil rights era. So growing up in a household with my grandfather, who was born in Fayetteville, North Carolina, his first job was when he was 5 years old, picking cotton and laying tobacco out to dry in a hot attic. He married my grandmother when he was 17, stayed married to her until her dying day in 2013. And to me, their relationship represented something that was very healthy. The archetype of a man, the archetype of a woman. It was the most steady thing in my entire life and in my entire childhood, because my parents had a very hectic and erratic relationship until they separated. So arriving into a household where people were into a classroom, where people were trying to disrupt that archetype and suddenly say that this was all toxic. I was hearing phrases I had never heard before, like toxic masculinity. That's a new one. I think that's emerged in the last 5 years. Toxic masculinity, like being a man is toxic. All of these ideas, which in my opinion have turned men into wimps. I mean, I'm just going to be honest with you. Seeing men walk around in t-shirts that say I'm a feminist, I don't like it. I think that there are things that women bring to a table and we should be proud of that. There are things that men bring to a table and we should be proud of that. And trying to disrupt and have women be men and men be women is something that I personally didn't know I wasn't comfortable with, but became consciously uncomfortable with in this classroom. So the point of the class that I took was that no matter what she said in the textbook, she would tell us something about women, and then she would say, why? And the answer was always because of men. So it would literally be like, why did Samantha lose her keys in the morning? And the answer was because her husband distracted her. And you could get an A in this class if you understood that the answer was always that men were oppressing women. There was one class in particular that stood out for me when she and I really had sort of a clash of the titans, and it was a class when we were talking about eating disorders, and she went like this. In the textbook it said, 89% of the people in America who have eating disorders are women. Why? The answer that she wanted, of course, was because of men. And if some person in the class rose her hand and gave her the answer, because of men. Men make us feel like, and this was a bigger young lady, men make us feel like we have to be skinny. Men decide that we have to have this body type, because of men, women don't feel comfortable being bigger. And I think I snickered in the back of a class. It's definitely something that I would do. And she turned around to me and she said, do you have a problem with that, Candace? And I said, well, that's the most ridiculous thing that I've ever heard. And I said, first and foremost, I can't remember a single time in my life that a man called me fat. That's typically a woman thing. There's women on women crime more often than there is men on men. Men calling women fat or saying your body's to that. You hear it from women, and having a productive conversation about the way women treat one another would be healthy. But instead, we're just going to blame men for all of this. And then I said to her, another way to what's missing from this textbook is I'd like to see the statistic of what the gender is of the people that take steroids. I bet the majority of people that take steroids are men. Is that because of women? Are we oppressing men to make them feel like they have to have muscles? Or have we just, as a society, decided what a desirable body type is? Rather than blaming women or blaming men, this is what we have decided is desirable. So at that point, she said to me, Candace, I feel like you were sent to me from the men's department. I'm trying to teach you something, and you're constantly, not accepting this information. And I said, this one's particularly hard for me to accept. And we went back and forth, and I introduced to her in that moment, in that year that I had an eating disorder. I was standing in a classroom as someone who had anorexia, which had nothing to do with men whatsoever. It had something to do with me trying to assert control over my life, because I had, I was I guess you could say the victim, I hate that word, of a hate crime when I was in high school. And the way that I dealt with it emotionally was by harnessing and having an eating disorder. And yet I'm standing in a classroom and a teacher is telling me that my eating disorder is a result of men. No, it's not. I'm living it. How can you tell me? How can you teach me something when I'm telling you that I'm living it? It was a very interesting moment because I didn't place it in the political spectrum. I didn't care about politics whatsoever. I was not invested in politics whatsoever. But in that moment, I think I was learning very early on the difference between what I have defined as liberalism and conservatism. The perspective of liberalism teaches us that no matter what you go through in life, there is someone that you can point to that is to blame, okay? If I have anorexia, it's because of men, okay? If I got a parking ticket, it's because of police officers are pigs, right? Constantly, you can look externally for the solutions to all of your problems. But as a conservative, it's different. You're in the driver's seat. You're constantly trying to say, what could I have done different? What could I have fixed? And I had decided that I was the cause of my eating disorder. Candace Owens made a decision to stop eating and to restrict calories to assert control over her life. Nobody did that to Candace Owens but Candace Owens, which is why Candace Owens was able to fix that when she got out of college. I didn't care about politics. But I think now, I was always a conservative, I just didn't know it. I wasn't awake to it because I went through the public school system, and when I got out of high school, I believed that Republicans were racist, that Democrats saved us at every single turn, that liberals were our allies, and that conservatives hated us and they harbored ill will towards black people. I think the majority of black people, when they come out of the public school system, feel that same exact emotion. It's very rare that you're going to find a young black person that tells you that they're conservative. That's just simply the way it is. All of that changed in 2015 when Donald Trump announced that he was running for the White House. When he ran for the President of the United States, when he announced he was running for the President of the United States, my first instinct was, hell no. There's no way that this guy that I've watched on TV saying you're fired, right? I thought of him as like a cartoon character, is going to be in the White House. There's just no way. I was on the Bernie train. This is going to be, Bernie sounded like my guy. This guy sounds good. This guy sounds like he knows what he's talking about. Donald Trump? No, absolutely not. But then something really weird happens. I didn't like the way Donald Trump spoke. It wasn't presidential. We just had Obama for 8 years, and he spoke so well. He made you feel comfortable when he spoke. We were going to go to this guy, Donald Trump. But then something else happened. I didn't want him to be in the White House because I didn't think he was presidential. But what I didn't think, not a single moment did it pass my mind that he was sexist, that he was racist, that he was a misogynist, that he was a rapist, that he was incestuous. At one point they were saying that he wanted to sleep with his daughter. Literally. At one point they were saying he had feelings for Ivanka. And I said, wow, that was a really fast turnaround. He went from being someone that was on TV for years to suddenly being a person that I was supposed to instantly believe and process was a racist, sexist, misogynist, literally Hitler, Nazi defender. In 5 seconds. It was a little too fast for me because I grew up listening to hip-hop. And in hip-hop music, they loved Trump. Yeah, hip-hop songs, it was always sipping poolside at Mar-a-Lago, like Trump. There were always lines in hip-hop songs about Trump, okay? Now, the second he announces that he was going to run for the White House, I was supposed to believe that he was a racist. You don't think that that's weird? I did. Maybe you didn't think it was weird. I thought it was weird. I thought it was just too fast of a turnaround. That I was suddenly supposed to believe he was racist. So in that moment, and at the time I was working in private equity, I asked myself a question. Is it possible, is it just possible that racism is being used as a theme to turn black people into single issue voters? Is it possible? Forget yes or no. I said, is it possible that racism is being used as a theme to turn black people into single issue voters? Is it possible that every 4 years they drum up themes of racism so that you will vote how they want you to? So that you will vote emotionally and not rationally? Well, let's test it out. Talk about some things that happened during the 2016 election cycle. Every single night in the 2016 election cycle, they had Black Lives Matter on the news. They were talking about black issues. We were seeing up on the screen that black men were being gunned down by police officers. And that was the theme that was plucked, right? This person got shot. this lady from Black Lives Matter is here to talk about what's going on in the black community. Timing was really suspicious to me. It just seemed like, wow, this is really every single night. Racism, racism, racism. It felt to me like maybe they were just trying to shove this down our throat, you know? And so I decided that instead of acting emotionally, because what person in their right mind would not be upset and emotional after watching Philando Castile get shot in his car? I cried when I watched it. Of course I cried. It was all over the news, and of course I cried. So then the question becomes, I stopped and I asked myself, but why are they showing this to me? I did a little research, and it turns out that that year, 16 unarmed black men were shot and killed by police officers. From a rate perspective, percentage-wise, more white people unarmed were shot by police officers and killed. More Hispanic people unarmed were shot by police officers and killed. And police officers were 18 and a half times more likely to be killed by a black man than the other way around. That's just the facts. You can say shut up to the facts. You can say shut up to the facts. I'm not, you know. That's actually a fact. You can look up the numbers when you're all done and you process this. You can look up the numbers and see whether or not I was right or wrong. But that's just the thing. So instantly I just said numbers. I didn't assess the numbers. I just told you the numbers, and the response is shut up. Shut up. I don't want to hear the numbers. I like my emotions so much, just shut up. It's ridiculous. But this is exactly it. This is the problem that we have as a community, that they can bank on the fact that rather than ever sit down and logically think and critically assess anything, you're just going to say, shut up, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. I don't care if the number was 18, I don't want to hear it. It shouldn't have even been 18. It shouldn't have even been 16. It shouldn't have been 13, I think it is down to this year. But that's an interesting thing. 0.00004% of the black community will be shot and killed unarmed by a police officer every year. So, as a black man, you have a higher chance of being struck down by lightning than you do of being shot unarmed by a police officer. That's a fact. Go ahead, somebody give me the shut up, I don't want to hear the facts, I hate facts, okay? That's the fact. Why do facts make our community so uncomfortable? Why does it make you uncomfortable? It's a fact. What I just said was a fact. I didn't assign any emotion to it. That's a fact.
You know, apples and orange. You talking crazy.
How is that an apple and an orange?
You don't debate me.
I'm not talking, I'm asking you a question. Let me get through this. I'm going to allow anybody to ask a question that wants to, but at a certain point, whether the facts make you uncomfortable or not, this is the journey to realizing that we are an emotional community. And if you know that a community will always respond emotionally, you are the easiest people to plug. It's fact. If I know that no matter what, you will place your emotion above facts, it is so easy to get your votes. It is so easy. What? Did you just ask me, do I do everything based off of facts? I can't hear you, I'm sorry. She's screaming over here. No, it's not. So the question then that I wanted to ask myself is, okay, if these are the facts, right, why is it that every 4 years around election time, these emotions get drummed up? So literally, I think to the day that Donald Trump won, they stopped putting Black Lives Matter on CNN. I haven't seen them. Have you guys seen them on CNN? You've seen them on CNN? All right. I genuinely have not seen them, and I watch a lot of news, but perhaps they have been. The point is that suddenly the narrative was drummed down significantly. It became about the Russia conspiracy and other things. Became to take prominence. Everything that's politically charged, that's meant to impact the way somebody votes. Plain and simple. You asked me if I base things on facts. Yes, I largely base the way that I act on facts, or at least organizing it. The prominence of what I should care about should be organized. I would care if Black Lives Matter took as their platform, you know, something that Chance the Rapper does, going into black communities and trying to figure out why black on black crime is happening, to sit down with those people, maybe I would take it a little more seriously. But when the idea is that we're supposed to hate police officers, could you imagine a world if we didn't have police officers? You genuinely, you're comfortable with a world if we didn't have police officers? Seems so insane. That seems insane to me. Go ahead.
I don't think that's what anybody's saying.
But there quite literally was a platform saying that we need to not have police officers. I'm talking to you about real results that came out of this movement. That was a real push. I understand, guys, listen, I understand that you may have never heard this before, that somebody gets down on the stage and say that they respect police officers, they respect veterans, that they like Donald Trump, okay? Because I do. I think he's been a fascinating president for Black America.
Can you
Okay.
All right, hold on for a second. Let her. I'm going to let you turn in some questions so we can get to some of those. If we just jump in and out, we're breaking it up. So let her finish, and then we can do Q&A. If not, I'm just going to let her finish and we'll end it. So I know people want to at least have questions. So let her do that, because if we don't, then I'll just let her finish, and then we'll be done. Okay?
If the narrative going into it was that Donald Trump was a racist, he's doing a really bad job at racism. We've had a 400% increase in black-owned businesses being started. We have black unemployment at an all-time low. We have more people off of food stamps than ever before. All I am about, only thing that I preach to our community is that we can do it without government handouts. We do not need government handouts. In fact, if you look at the statistics, and yes, this is a fact-based discussion, the black community is poorer today than we were in the 1960s, despite $22 trillion being paid into the welfare system. The welfare system was created by a racist president. Lyndon Baines Johnson was an avowed racist. He called the 1964 bill, it's on record, and actually, liberals don't dispute it. So you can go to Snopes.com for this, and they are known to be liberal, okay? He called the Civil Rights Bill of 1964 the nigger bill. And he gave a direct quote saying that now that they have the right to vote, that these N-words are getting uppity. We need to do something so that we can control them. This is a direct quote from Lyndon Baines Johnson that is not disputed on the left or the right. You can Google it yourselves. The creation of the welfare society was meant to do just that. He said we need to give them a little something, just enough, but not too much. And that's exactly what the welfare system is. I believe the welfare system is one of the bigger issues facing our community, and the biggest issue facing our community is father absence. Lyndon Baines Johnson systematically removed black fathers from the home via the welfare systems. He incentivized black fathers not being in the home by saying to single mothers that if you do not marry the father of your children, we will give you more money. Since the 1960s, the single motherhood rate has jumped from 23% to 74% in the black community, and nobody is talking about that whatsoever. Nobody's talking about that. So while we are hyper-focused, okay, on the things in our community, like the 16 unarmed black men that are shot, nobody is talking about the fact that black fathers have been removed from the home. I believe that liberals use black people for votes. I believe that white liberals literally take over every movement that has ever been started, inject their money into it to get black emotion to back white liberal ideas. I do not support the Me Too movement whatsoever, because that's another movement that has been hijacked by the left to use black emotion to back white liberal ideas. I believe we have become the voting mules to the Democrat Party. They pretend to be your friends, all they want are your votes. Every single time it's time to vote, you will see that racism conversation hits a peak in this country, because at the end of the day, and here's something that's true, the Democrat Party cannot lose the black vote. They cannot lose it. If they get 83% of the black vote, they lose. They lose everything. They have to maintain more than 83% of the black vote to sustain their party. We're in control, and we're getting the worst deal ever. How is it possible? How is it possible that we are in control? The party cannot be sustained without us, and we are doing the worst in the party. They want you to go back illegal immigrants? Really? You guys get offended when he said, please don't cut me off. You guys get offended when he says build the wall, when illegal immigration is one of the number one things that harm the black community and the black workforce? I can't hear you. Okay? You get offended when somebody says to build a wall because somebody is trying to tell you illegal immigration directly hurts young black men in this age bracket, 18 to 21 years old. Black men are forced to, someone said how? Black men are forced to compete with illegals that will do it under minimum wage. 100%. That is our workforce from 18 to 21. I'm just telling you the facts. There are entire articles around it that directly tell you. Okay? So they're putting our men out of work. What people don't realize is that they have figured out how to sell to you, how to back up things that actually hurt you. How to scream out when somebody says they're taking away food stamps. Food stamps are hurting the black community. Welfare is hurting the black community. How to scream out when somebody says build a wall. Illegal immigration is hurting the black community.
All right, hold on.
If you're just going to scream, I can't hear you. So you might as well keep it civilized and ask for a mic and ask a question. I'm not going to hear 20 people screaming out.
Okay. All right, listen up. You have a card. If you have a question, write the question. Let me get some of y'all to get the questions. I will read the questions. We're going to try to do a few. Wait, listen. Listen.
You're telling them to shout. If they shout, I'm not going to hear their questions. I'm actually not going to hear your question. What are you applauding?
All right, just hold on.
This is the point. Is what I'm saying. You're acting emotionally, not rationally. If you all scream out, I'm actually not going to hear your question. I want to hear your questions.
All right, so
you're applauding what? That he said scream out?
Right. So look, we're going to do a mix. We're going to have a mix, but everybody's got to listen. We want to ask questions.
I want to answer your questions.
So let's ask. We're going to have some questions. Let my senior class president start. Listen. Everybody's got to listen up because we can't get anywhere if you don't listen. Okay?
Hi. First of all, I want to say thank you for coming. I also love your shoes. My name is Madison Torrey. I'm a graduating senior here, political science major. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So how have you, or in the past in your undergraduate experiences, how have you confidently express your conservative and Republican views? Because for me in the classroom, when I express some of them, and when I do tell people I'm a Republican, and they're like, you're a woman, you're black, and then I really do get a lot of attacks.
Right.
How, and just like kind of what happened in here, how are you comfortable with expressing your views? And how are you confident in that as well?
Well, because they're well researched. Like saying to someone "shut up" is not a logical response, right? So if the response is "boo, shut up," that's not, you don't win the argument by being the louder person. So if somebody came back with the fact that if they were confident in their ideas, right, there would be civility. If you knew that you had the atom bomb of truth on your side, you wouldn't need to jump up. You wouldn't need a choir to get you hyped up or feel like you're on the side of having more people. A bunch of people being wrong does not make me feel scared to be right. And you shouldn't be either.
I'm going to ask one on the card. Does President Trump not use the emotions of his so-called base to promote his values?
Hold on. Use the emotions?
Yeah, I think there's, in response to, I think you talked about Democrats and emotions. So this question says, does President Trump not use the emotions of his so-called base to promote his values?
No, I think he's actually delivering the results in every single one of the promises that he made during his campaign. So that's what's making. What do you mean how? What do you mean how? He's delivered on all of his promises. He's got 2 Supreme Court justices elected to the courts. He's lowered taxes. He introduced a tax bill to lower taxes. I mean, you don't have to like the answers for them to be right. I just want to make sure everybody knows that.
And you're right. She's right about that. You shut up and listen.
So I think that because he's delivered on all the promises that he's made in the campaign, his followers are not only growing, they're digging their feet in. Go ahead, sweetheart. Hey, my name is Lauren Rhodes. Sorry. Okay, so I came here very open-minded to hear what you have to say. I also want to let you know that I do respect your opinion, although mine differ from you. Some of the things you said, though, I want to hear you back them up a little bit more. So, so I know the research, especially about black killings in America. I make myself very educated on it. So I know that you are correct. Oh, no, y'all didn't have that. So you're correct. I just hope you're going to say anything against me. Hold on. No. Wait. But listen. You're correct in the fact that, I'm sorry, y'all. So you're correct in the fact that black killings among Americans or young black youth is at a lower rate than white America, but you're also not taking into the fact that black people are a minority, so that statistically, the percentage of white people versus the percentage of black people, that doesn't take into account. Also, I think as far as the Black Lives Matter movement, yeah, you have these radical people who are like, oh yeah, let's get rid of police, the Me Too movement, yeah, let's get rid of men. I don't think that's what the movement was made of as an essence. So it's been hijacked. You're right. You're right. But so the thing is, though, my question is, though, like in all your statistics and stuff about black people in this, how many of those police officers were convicted as opposed to the white police officers that were Hold on. First off, let me just say this. I think that any police officer, I mean, there are different situations that go on, but there should be convictions for anybody that goes out and shoots somebody without any reason or harm. So you're asking a question of something that I didn't say, and you're applauding something that I didn't say. I didn't say people should not be convicted. So, but I want to answer your question. First off, the rate is what I did talk about. The rate is that white Americans were killed at a higher rate than, not the numbers. I wasn't got the raw numbers. The rate. Hispanics, I know I'm trying to answer. You asked me three parts. Hispanics and whites are killed at a higher rate. Don't take apart the population difference, a higher rate than black Americans are. And police officers are 18.5 times more likely to be gunned down from a black man than the other way around. So just to answer that question. What was the second thing you asked me?
The question overall is that in a lot of these cases, though, especially you brought up black on black crime.
Right.
And the thing is, a lot of times in the black community, when a black person kills a black person goes to jail.
That's not true. In the south side of Chicago, they don't even catch the killer at a higher rate. That's just not true.
But my question is, and all the statistics of white cops killing black people, how many of those times were police officers convicted of these killings?
Look, but that you're asking me a question about something that I didn't make an argument for. I'm not. You would never hear me launch a defense saying that when a police officer does something wrong, that they shouldn't be tried. I actually did an entire project when I was in school on the blue wall. Police officers look out for police officers, period, and it's wrong. But I would never argue that it wasn't wrong. They're police officers, because of the protection that is provided from the fact that they work for the system, are more likely to get off in committing a crime, obviously, than somebody else is a regular person. I think that that's actually pointedly wrong. And the last thing that you brought up was the Black Lives Matter thing. And you said, oh, there's some good segments of it. That's the point, okay? White liberals like to start these groups, these things with black emotion, so they can build their platforms on it, okay? That's just the truth. I mean, that's it. They get power. So they start with you because they know that we're going to be emotional and loud and applauding. We're an emotional group of people. I mean, let me tell you, if I was sitting in an auditorium at a different school, even if people disagree with me, they'd let me get through what I had to say, right? They bank on our emotion. That's what I'm saying to you, is that at the core of all of these movements, it starts on something that might be kind of real, and then it gets hijacked by liberals so that they can secure votes, period. And I'm against it.
All right, listen up, because I want to get to some more questions. All right, this is from one of the cards. This person writes, as a fellow Republican, I have encountered some racial issues while being a member of the party. Have you experienced this, and how do you deal with it?
So here's what I'll say. The Republican Party is splintered in the same way that the Democrat Party is splintered. I think that they're definitely, to me, is a part, and these are actually the never-Trumpers I would identify. I've seen this within the never-Trump, like within the Republican Party, there was a group of people that were never-Trumpers. I mean, obviously you guys know that. He was also fighting the Republican Party when he ran. And I've seen, I like to be cautious when I use the word racism, because I think that it's thrown around so much today that nobody takes it seriously, because we call everything racist, and if everything's racist, then nothing's racist. So I like to be careful when I use that word, but I will say that I have observed in that smaller market of conservatism, almost like they turn their nose down to culture, and because black people are really we're cultural. Like we're more cultured, I would say. And you know, they don't understand hip hop music. They don't understand Ebonics, and they genuinely think of culture and black culture as being something that is like less than. But I would say it's very minuscule. But I've observed it where I've been like, I don't really think that you understand black people. I'm not sure if you're happy that I'm here.
Hi, my name is Lydia Page Moffin, and I'm a sophomore majoring in political science. My question to you is, if you don't agree with the structure and the organization of movements such as the Black Lives Matter movement and the Me Too movement, then why haven't you worked with leaders to try and fix these laws as you see fit, instead of siding with president's views who promote the oppression of black people and demean females, when that's a direct reflection of you as an African-American woman in our community?
Thank you. That was a really good question. Can I ask you a question back? How do you feel that President Trump has promoted the oppression of black people?
So, for our generation, for the youth, a lot of what we see is from a social media perspective and from some of the tweets that he sends out, or even the statements that he makes when they're offensive and derogatory towards females.
But just say one way, because I get this all the time. How can you support a president that oppresses black people? What has he said that has been, guys, gotta let her get her question out. Like, really, what have you heard him say that has been oppressive towards black people in particular?
Hold on, let's go now. We can't hear.
So if we're going to talk about from a female standpoint, there was a big blow up when the whole video footage came out about him talking about women in the locker room, talking about ground women by the private area, things of that nature. And if you want to talk about things,
Do you want my opinion on that?
I like you first to answer my question, and then if you'd like to.
No, well, because the answer to your question is that if you gave me specific examples, I would tell you what I thought about them. Usually people like to say blanket, it's derogatory towards women, but if you give me an example, I'll tell you what I think about that. So you're talking about the grab them by the pussy. He said that groupies will let you literally grab them by the pussy, right? That's what you're talking about? Saying that that's derogatory. Anybody ever been to, like, I actually used to intern, and I'm not going to name the artist that I worked for on the road, some hip-hop artists. Anybody ever been around groupies? I'm not saying, first off, we're talking about him being privately recorded talking to a guy. I hate when people act like we're saints. I hate this. I hate the garbage of like virtue signaling. I would never say that groupies. Yeah, yes, you would. It's in all of our music. It's in our culture. Yes, you would. Be real. I hate when we act fake. Okay? It's fake. It's fake. Okay? You know how people are talking about groupies. You can put on a Jay song and hear that. You can put on a Kanye song and hear that. Okay? So Trump says it in a locker room, and all of a sudden the black community wants to virtue signal. Oh my God! It's just I can't believe it's boring that he would ever say this. Like, yes, groupies do a lot of disgusting stuff. It's in all of our music. Why do you suddenly not like that when it comes out of a president's mouth and he's talking about it in a privacy of his room? People need to just stop being fake. I hate fake people. It's just fake. Said it.
All right.
That's a direct quote.
Next question. All right, y'all listen up because I want to try to get
True.
to a couple.
You know it's true. You know it's true. When people in our community, like we grew up listening to hip hop music, and people in our community will be acting like they're really offended about Trump's tweets, and I'm like, it's fake. When Jay-Z was sitting up on CNN and he was like, he hurts people's feelings. I'm like, Jay-Z, have you heard a Jay-Z album? Like, it's just fake. I don't like anything that's fake. Period.
All right, I'm gonna do just a couple more. All right. One question, this one says, can you elaborate on your quote, the most controversial thing I've done was decide to think with my brain instead of my skin tone?
Yeah, I did say that. It was because it's crazy. I've done a lot of controversial things in my life. I mean, I did not have an easy childhood. I lived through a lot. I saw a lot growing up, and I was constantly in trouble. Suddenly, I said I was a conservative, and the whole world blew up. That was considered the highest controversy ever, is a black person saying that I don't subscribe to groupthink, I think for myself, to a black person standing on a stage and saying, I don't care if I'm in a room of 3,000 people that disagree with me. If I believe what I believe, I have the boldness to stand up here and tell you that these are my thoughts. So the most controversial thing I ever decided to do was to think with my brain instead of my skin tone and to not subscribe to monolithic thought. As you can see, it's quite controversial.
Hello. I'm really open to free thought, but I feel like your attempt to educate has been an opportunity to belittle, because I feel like a lot of us in the room feel belittled. But my question is, instead of conforming to a conservative view,
You guys are the ones booing, and I just like basically got booed off stage.
let me answer my question.
I'm just responding to that point.
Okay. Instead of conforming to conservative views, why don't you just reform and reshape what it means to be a liberal? Because I remember you saying you were a liberal before you decided to be a conservative.
Because every single one of the liberal points are hypocritical. They're just not real. Like, and that, when I'm talking about that, is like a perfect example of that is just like that question I just said. Like, you have to be some type of a hypocrite to pretend that somebody talking about groupies in a locker room offends you, but at the same time you're listening to the type of music that we listen to. Like, to me, it's fake. I just don't like fake people. Like, it doesn't, like, so for me, I can't jive with liberals because everything is so fake, and it's like every movement. But I am, first and foremost, I'm not a Republican, I'm an independent. Okay? I'm conservative. My viewpoints are conservative. I believe in men. Okay? I think that we need men. I don't believe in this toxic masculinity, guys wearing shirts that say, I'm a female. I don't really like that. So I believe in the structure, conservative structure of a man and a woman staying married, not having multiple wives. Like, really, God, right? It's not okay to even believe in, liberals now are making fun of Jesus Christ and God. Like, my viewpoints are conservative in general, but me personally, I'm independent. There are problems with the Republican Party, and there are problems with the Democrat Party, but only one of them is getting 90% of the black votes, and that happens to be the party that has hurt black people more than anybody else.
All right, next question from the card that says, why do you agree with the Tennessee candidate Marsha Blackburn, who is against equality in pay, same-sex marriage, and is against the Violence Against Women Act?
So first off, I actually don't know about the Violence Against Women Act, and to say that I agree with her. So in writing that tweet yesterday you guys are talking about, for those of you that don't know, Taylor Swift wrote this whole long thing about how she can't support women. And the truth is that I'm really sick and tired of particularly liberal white liberal celebrities. So the Lena Dunhams, who was the one that got arrested holding the Black Power sign this week? Amy Schumer, that was wild, right? Asking to be arrested and then posting and saying that they do it and then racism. I'm just kind of tired of these people throwing out their ideas, and again, like I said, constantly the theme is that they want to pretend that they're fighting for social justice, but in reality, all they're trying to do is get people to do their bidding by pretending that they care about the issues. If Taylor Swift cared about, black people, because her whole thing was about racism, fighting racism, I haven't seen Taylor Swift do much. I could be wrong, you could let me know. I haven't seen Taylor Swift do much for the black community. If you want to talk, if she was somebody who cared about the black community, then what she did to Kanye was cold. Right? Trying to pretend that a black man did something terrible to her and playing the victim, right? And then it's going to slide back into reality without saying sorry. I don't like it. So I'm not a fan of Taylor Swift in general because of some of the things that she's done. And I think Marsha Blackburn is a really great candidate.
Hello, my name is Mariah Johnson. I'm a psychology major. I am from the very liberal Bay Area. I'm sure you love us. My question, some of the things you've said have been, they've been a little triggering, but I do appreciate your being brave enough to be up here. My question is, you said you were a journalist, so how is journalism a part of the problem if you yourself claim to be an advocate for free speech and diverse narratives?
That was journalism. I majored in journalism.
Yes, I know.
I thought you said I was a journalist. Sorry, I misheard you. So I'm sorry.
I was just saying that if you yourself claim to be an advocate of free speech and diverse narratives, then how are they a part of the problem? How are journalists a part of the problem?
Because they're hyperbolic, right? So it would be healthy if journalists presented both sides of the perspective. Just try to objectively turn off the news and just read the headlines. If you just objectively read the headlines, you would think that we were living in the 1930s and black people were being lynched every day and women didn't have the right to vote. It's really gotten hyperbolic. It's not the first person that wants to, you know what, here's a perfect thing. Denzel Washington said a great quote. He said that if you watch the news, if you don't watch the news, you're uneducated. If you do watch the news, you're miseducated, and people are trying to be really fast to get out the thing that's the most fire. Everybody wants to be BuzzFeed, everybody wants to be TMZ, and I think it's harmful because it doesn't create an environment where people can actually talk to each other and hear different perspectives because there's so much emotion pent up because of the news cycle. So, they act like the world's been ending and not much has changed. There's not really, I didn't feel like a different person when I woke up.
There are a lot of diverse narratives out there that are
So truthfully, 90% of the news is liberal. I don't think that's diverse. That's That's a fact. No, 90% of the news is liberal. That's a fact. The number one news station is Fox News, but they're an anomaly. 90% of the news stations, 90% of the news is liberal. Everything in Hollywood is liberal. So everything that we're getting from Hollywood, from hip hop, from celebrities is liberal, which is why it's so controversial for Kanye to put on a MAGA hat, right? Because it's like he's really by himself. He's like the only person that's had the courage. By the way, you guys should know, if I'm not going to name them, but a lot of the hip hop artists are conservative. They just don't say it because they don't want to deal with all the BS of having people label them and think that they betray. I'm not going to name them because it's their business when they want to come out, but you'd be shocked. Because here's what happens. People want to call Kanye a traitor. Kanye is actually the only person who didn't give up on the black community. Most of them get into it, understand how it works, understand how the money works, and become conservative because of that. And then they say, should I come back and tell everybody how it works? Should I come back and tell people that listen and buy my music what really happens and how this works and how they're all being manipulated emotionally? And they say, nah, I don't want to fall on the sword. Kanye actually had the courage to fall on the sword for the black community. He's taking the most of the heat because he's one of the only ones that cares enough to come back and try to tell you guys what's really going on. You can believe that or you cannot, but it's the truth. Thank you.
All right, here's one. It's a two-part question. What does your brand of politics have to offer black women? And secondly, you say that welfare is why there are no black men in the home at the hands of Democrats, but the war on drugs directly placed primarily black and brown people in jail in the 80s, created by Ronald Reagan. So,
all right, actually, if you want to talk about black men being in prison, the president that locked up the most black men in the history of the United States was Bill Clinton in his crime bill of 94, so that's factually incorrect. Most black men got locked up by Bill Clinton. And those fools you guys were about to put them back, and I say you guys, I mean the majority of black people that voted for Hillary Clinton, which is absurd to me, right? So we were going to put them right back in the White House, the family that has done the most messed up things to the black community in the history of the United States. We had people saying they were with her. That to me was crazy. You can be a Democrat, that's fine. You can be a liberal. I welcome different perspectives, but you really have to be uneducated about black culture to say that you want Hillary Clinton back in the White House. If you really just must not know black history, what she did to Haiti and got away with it. I mean, what they did to Haiti and walked away clean, that's crazy to me. But so to answer your question, sorry, that was the answer to the first thing, is that actually the president that put the most black person in prison was the Clinton family. What was the first part of the question?
The question asked about what is your brand of politics? How does it speak to black women or role for black women?
Oh, if black women would like to hear the truth about the things that we're going to, particularly talking about single motherhood rate, what's going on with the children in the home, without what happens. Actually, Barack Obama was the first president that ever articulated how harmful it is to grow up without a father in the home. You're 20 times more likely to end up in prison, 6 times more likely to drop out of school, 9 times more likely to lead a life of crime. That was articulated by Barack Obama, and it's the biggest problem facing our community. So I try to tell people the facts, whether they're receptive to them. I hope eventually they are. I'm starting to see it start to change. I mean, according to like my inbox, I used to just get terrible things said to me, and now when I look in the comments, it seems to be like an ideological civil war happening in the black community, and that feels good. And everybody has to agree with me, but I need to know that we're at least debating and arguing so that we're not a fucking monolith. Pardon my language.
Hi, my name is Elijah Jackson. I'm also from the Bay Area. And I have a question about something you said back in April when you were at UCLA. Why did you call the Black Lives Matter protesters a bunch of whining toddlers pretending to be oppressed?
Because they were. Okay, so to me, I'm sorry. I can't, and I'm laughing here because I just can't take it seriously. Again, I hate fake people. Like, I can't say, I'm like allergic to fake, all right? So you mean to tell me that I grew up in a household being raised by a man who had to wake up before the crack of dawn every day, picking cotton, laying out tobacco to dry, receiving pennies for this, right? Branded in the face by the KKK for selling orders on the wrong corner. Never in my entire life has my grandfather told me that he was oppressed, had he told me that I couldn't do something because I was black, or told me that there was barriers. My grandfather was only taught me exclusively that hard work pays off. Kanye introduced me to Jim Brown a couple of weeks ago in Chicago. Jim Brown, exact same thing. We're all bickering about how to fix things in the black community, and Jim Brown gets up and gives a speech and he says, the reason why I was successful, do you want to know what I did? I worked hard. That was it. It was that simple. All these conversations are crazy. Like, it's just, so the truth is that we are the most privileged black people to ever live in America, and yet we are the loudest in talking about our oppression. I can't take it seriously. So I'm sitting here, they're sitting at UCLA of all schools. Have you been to the campus? It's just like, really? And you're trying to sell to me, an audience, that you're oppressed because you have to hear conservative ideas on campus? You're oppressed?
My grandfather wasn't oppressed, but you're oppressed because you have to hear conservative ideas on campus. I call them a bunch of whiny toddlers because I think they are.
All right, there have been a couple of questions. I'm gonna ask just a couple last ones. A couple questions. If people want to debate the facts, they're asking, where do you get your facts from? How will you share with them? Because they might want to check later. There's going to be additional discussions. Where do you get your facts from?
You should go to the government websites if you're talking about police crime. All that's online. It's available. The facts that I said about Lyndon Baines Johnson, that's not disputed on the left or the right. So you can pick a source. Everybody knows he was an avowed racist. And they just released what files they just released when Trump came into office? I'm blanking. And it was said that he was in the KKK. And yet in our school books, we learned that he was the greatest president for black people. It's insane. They literally created a different type of plantation, a mental one, in my opinion. Black people moved from having their bodies enslaved to now we seem to be in a position where our minds are enslaved. But we're comfortable there. So whether or not you like me, my purpose for me is to make you a little uncomfortable and to challenge you to think.
All right. And just to add to this, just one quick anecdote when she talked about crime under Reagan. If you read Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow, and she's a real strong black liberal, she talks about the Clinton and the war on drugs. So there's a lot in there. So just think about that. This question asks, how serious are you for being in the race for president in 2024? What would be your presidential agenda?
To keep up more or less the exact same thing that Trump's doing in terms of getting people off of dependency and stop making us government dependent and re-encouraging us to be independent. Believe it or not, and this is insane, and I can give you guys a video link on PragerU if you want to see it. Black people were doing better economically in this country under Jim Crow between 1940 and 1950 than we're doing today. That's insane to me, but it's 100% true. And the reason is because we didn't have this structure of dependency coming from the government. The government wasn't giving us just a little and not enough. We didn't have food stamps. We didn't have housing in Section 8. We had our backs against the wall, and our grandparents, most people that I don't know if it's the same for all of you in this room, my grandparents did better than my parents did, which is crazy because they grew up in a tougher time. So I think my agenda would be to sort of get everybody independent. And I think once people are economically empowered, they feel more empowered in general.
All right, so and this will be the last question. This is my question. So my question is, have you thought about why you? There have been a number of black conservatives, Larry Elder, Armstrong Williams, that haven't taken off the way that you have in terms of social media following, in terms of levels and spheres of influence. Have you thought about what's different about you? Why do you think it's resonated with people? I don't know. It's been interesting, and I just want to know, how have you thought about what has happened to you in such a short period of time?
Yeah, I have thought about it. So one of the people that I admire the most is Dr. Thomas Sowell. He's a brilliant man who has said this for decades. If I ever met him, I think I would cry. He's the only person that I'm truly a fan of. And Dr. Ben Carson, I had the pleasure of meeting with him too. Dr. Condoleezza Rice. It's amazing to me that these people, absolutely brilliant. I mean, Dr. Ben Carson is a literal brain surgeon, and our community rejects them as Uncle Toms and Coons. Think about this. We are the only community that has that word, Uncle. There is no word that is similar to Uncle Tom in the Jewish community. The Jewish community, when one of them gets ahead, they want to know how, they want to learn more, and they all go together like a pack, and they're tribal, and there's a lot to learn from the Jewish community and the way that they have come back and are at the top of society, given the fact that they survived a near genocide. So I'll say that first off, is that our community has this thing where we shun people that are absolutely brilliant, and we'll give a platform to people that, like if LeBron James says something, you're like, yeah, woo, woo, woo. Okay, LeBron James, first off, amazing at basketball. Love LeBron James, but smarter than Dr. Ben Carson and Dr. Condoleezza Rice. So I think part of the reason is that because they are so unbelievably educated, they disallow themselves to engage in our community in a certain way. I think, and I'm speaking for them, that they may... See, that's what I'm talking about, calling him a coon. I think that they might find that the conversation, like getting booed and fighting, all that stuff, seems to be like beneath the pale for them when they're just trying to tell people the facts. Me, I go right into the fire. I'm comfortable standing on stage in front of Black Lives Matter and debating them and their views. I think that I'm much more in your face because I'm unapologetic in my approach. And yeah, I think in many ways I can feel a bit like a spanking, like I'm really in your face, like I'm just like this, you're either gonna get it or you're not. I'm happy to fall on a sword 1,000 times to the black community. I think that the people that are sometimes called Uncle Toms and Coons are the ones that care the most about the black community. The people, which you mentioned on stage, you said that quote about Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, those are the people that have betrayed the community. They betrayed the community in our faces, and not everybody is woken up to it yet.
All right, y'all give it up. Everybody clap. Y'all did it. So let me just say a couple final remarks. I mean, this is a good, tough conversation. It's emotional, but I think that's good. We need to have these conversations. So there is an opportunity tomorrow. The sophomore class in August came to me and said, we want to have a follow-up discussion. So that will be tomorrow night in this space. So you can come back and you guys can debate more and have those conversations at 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock tomorrow. So any questions that weren't asked or answered tonight, you guys can debate that. So I'm glad, like I said, it's tense, but I think it's a good conversation to have.
Thank you to all of you, some of you guys leaving. Thank you for attending, even if you disagree with me. I think it's really important for you guys to hear different perspectives. Yep. So I really appreciate all of you guys attending.
Let me thank Alana and Traylon, y'all stand up, who are students on the program, as well as Dinah. A couple of quick announcements. Election Day is November 6th in Louisiana. The last day to register is tomorrow, and you can register online until next week. The UNCF Walk is Saturday, and then we have events next Thursday, including Lean Away, okay? All right, so we'll see y'all later. Thanks.